Hello, and welcome to Lead, Learn, Connect, where we explore the worlds of training and coaching and powerful leadership. I'm your host, Alan Krieger, and on this show we talk about not just the how of helping others grow, but behind-the-scenes work of overcoming challenges and staying connected to what's really important. My guest today is Lisa Cummings, a trainer, speaker, coach, podcast host, and drummer and singer in a great rock band called Spiral Mischief. Her company is Lead Through Strengths, and she shifted her focus to helping other trainers and coaches build their business. Whether you're a new trainer, a seasoned facilitator, or just curious about what it takes to really thrive in this world, this episode is for you. Welcome, Lisa.
Thanks. So happy to be here.
Great to have you. So let's just jump in. One of the things we were talking about earlier, the secret sauce to success is getting high-paying clients. So how did you build your business to get to where you were getting a pretty good income?
Well, I did two things that set the stage for the future. And the first one was just connecting with people I already knew and telling them what I do. And it's so deceivingly simple because we go out on our own and then we're like, should I just go out and tell people, hey, I've got this new thing? And whether it's awkward or we're not sure if they're in our target market, there is just an element in holdback that happens with people. I'm like, do you meet people and tell them what you do? Do the people you already know, who already know you and love you, do they know what you do? Because next time they're having a team workshop and they could say, hey, Joe, you do this thing, you want to come work for our team. So that was huge, just reaching out to existing connections. And then the second thing was a podcast. So I love this vehicle, this modality that we have for audio. Truthfully, I liked it because I didn't have to do hair and makeup. I just thought it would be great because I didn't have to get over that barrier of feeling ready to be on camera. And I started it in, I think, 2014, possibly 2015, so a long time ago. And I really dedicated myself to the content that would back it up and live on forever. I think a lot of us, especially people who train people development, we have timeless content. And I always thought it was sad when social media started getting big and other content creation channels became big. It seemed like you would create content and then it would just disappear within the day. And what is so cool about podcasting, it's kind of like a search engine. So you have that element alone. People will search for old shows. And if you have timeless content, it doesn't matter how old it is. And then also I would dedicate to writing a blog post that represented every show, having full transcripts, even when we had to manually transcribe it back in the day. And then I would create social content, blog content, etc. And it really boosted the search engine optimization of my website over time. It took about 18 months, I would say, before the inbound leads started coming in very easily. Of course, I made it clear in my show, if you're giving examples and telling stories and they're all about the Fortune 500, then you're attracting an audience that you're talking to, right? They're finding you because you understand what talent development is like on those teams. So those audiences naturally came and listened. Essentially, I was self-sponsoring my show with the back end of the blog really becoming that search engine part. It became my inbound lead generation. And within 18 months, I wasn't reaching out to anyone. I was 100% booked with 100 events a year. And just living on airplanes because of the podcast. So I think that's a really cool story because so many people, if they become independent trainers or coaches, the idea of prospecting seems scary or awkward, and they are thinking about cold calling and things that they wouldn't like. And I've been able to do it 100% inbound.
Okay, so podcasting is the secret sauce.
There you go.
All right, well, we'll see how that works. Okay. And then I know you have tools for trainers. You provide a whole range of tools. Can you talk a little bit about what some of those tools are that you find most helpful and that people seem to gravitate towards?
Yeah, for sure. So current state, I'm calling it tools for coaches. And it is definitely made for trainers because that was the core of my business. But I also did one-on-one coaching and I also did keynote speeches. So think about any of the resources that you would use or have to build as you're building your business, one thing at a time you're building it, right? You need a deck, you need a good template for your slides. Okay, now you need a workbook template. Okay, now you need a contract because you landed your high-paying client and they said, do you have an MSA? Do you have an SOW? And then you're Googling it like, what's an SOW? And you find out, okay, I need a master service agreement. I need a statement of work. I need some contracts that I can send to them. I need processes. I need a project plan. If we're running an event and people are doing assessments beforehand and we want them to do pre-work, who's reaching out to them? When? How are we managing the making of materials and all those things? So inside I have the project plans that we use to run events. The one that people seem to like the most is I have 2 years worth of nurture emails where I would deliver a workshop and then I would, as part of the program, I would always do these 12-week activation courses to keep the content alive and keep the momentum so that after you leave, people don't just get busy, go back to work and forget about all the great stuff that happened that day. And then following that 12 weeks, it converts into a couple of years worth of emails that keep in touch and educate on that topic, people development. And that one has really been a favorite because my clients who are members, they just come in and they take it's anything they've ever thought of or seen in a training business or coaching business. They'll say, do you have a template for X? And I'll be like, yeah, let me go turn it into a template. Or do you have it? And I'll say, yeah, I'll turn it into a template if it doesn't exist. And now we have this huge library of content. So for the kind of people who love having a starting place, and they also love having a bunch of peers who have been there and done it already, and they just want to say, how do you navigate procurement departments? How do you do this thing? We have a community and a place for people to go to ask those questions. You kind of have that mentorship element, but you also have all the materials and assets to give you the head start so that you don't have to start from scratch. And instead of spending 8 hours or 12 hours making that thing, you can take a starting point, rebrand it, make it your own, and it took you an hour instead.
Yeah, so there are a lot of small pieces to running a business that people don't think about. I just want to do training. I call you up. I go, but yeah, contracts and formats and all the little steps in the way, and then some great suggestions for. Yeah, I used to do what I call follow-up emails. That if people in the class signed up, they would get kind of reminders over a period of time to keep the content alive and also to keep me in their minds. It works both ways. So.
Right. Yeah. And to call back to your original question, how did I build a business of high-paying clients? That follow-up email sequence, that has been so rich for the business because I don't have the exact number, but I'm going to estimate about 50 events that I've had from people just hitting reply. They're like a year and a half into a sequence of education emails and boop, they hit reply and they're like, hey, we have a summit coming up. Can you come deliver a keynote? And it just comes out of nowhere to me, but it's because I've been keeping that relationship alive and they've stayed in touch with me through reading those every week. And then boom, out of the blue, they hit reply and you get a gig. So it's been amazing how often that has happened.
Yeah. So regular communication, whether it's podcasting, emailing, or some other ways of just staying in touch with people over time.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. What are some of the challenges or other concerns that new trainers and coaches have that you've come across that we haven't talked about yet?
Let's see. Well, thing one is just deciding. I think early on, we'll often have 10 topics that we might cover. And having something, I just call it a signature offer, but having something you can say you do, it doesn't mean it's the only thing you do. You could deliver 15 different training courses, right? But when people say, what do you do? To be able to answer it clearly. And so, for example, mine, for most of the time I had my training business, it was about Clifton Strengths. And I was doing team building retreats, doing Clifton Strengths to help people figure out how they're awesome and work better together. And if I said, well, I deliver training, I also can, I do like Clifton Strengths, but I also use a few other assessments. I also can do one-on-one coaching with your leaders. I also can do these like feedback, collaboration, communication. I can do lots of other topics as well. It just sounds totally wishy-washy. I can do speaking, I can do training, I can do coaching. So you just have to pick a signature product, a signature thing to get known for. It helps so much with, what are you going to say on social? How are you going to answer the question when people say, what do you do? So having that clarity, it really wraps people up in this sea of confusion. And sometimes they'll stay in that for years. I mean, they get stuck on other things too, like branding and what's my color palette and what should my website have on it, and wanting to have all of that really tidy. I think that's a nice thing to do. And I actually think you should have it tidy, but it all comes down to just make a decision and go, because the worst case is you change your mind and change it later, but make the decision and start living into it. That's probably the biggest one, is that whole thing about feeling like you don't have a descriptor, this umbrella term for what you do. There are many others, like I could really get into the weeds. Once you get those high paying clients, if you want big corporate, there are a lot of pitfalls to know about and a lot of lessons learned and things that you have to navigate to understand how to work in that marketplace. But definitely I would start with just clarity on what you do and just deciding, because there isn't a right answer. You just pick.
Yeah, I think people are afraid if I just say this is what I do, well, they wanted this and now I missed the gig, but
Yeah.
You're right. If you try to be everything to everybody, then you're nothing to everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
Listen, I did it too. Even when I got really narrow with my thing where I was helping people find their strengths, I wanted to specialize in virtual. So you mentioned that I'm a drummer, and I realized when I live on the road and I'm trying to practice drums on a pillow by bringing some drumsticks in my suitcase, it just isn't working. And I really wanted more time at home. So long before COVID and long before people were comfortable on virtual, I was offering virtual to big corporate, and it was such a hit. And it was like, I realized there was a need in the marketplace that wasn't being hit, because they would tell me all their other vendors would complain about having to do virtual. And I loved it. I just thought it was super cool. And so I wanted to specialize in that. But I was so scared, because if 95% of my business was in person, and then I'm going to put on my website virtual training as a headline, I thought, what if my business goes to zero? But the thing is, that happened to me and will happen to anyone else who is afraid of they won't know that I could do this other stuff, is then you'll attract the people who want virtual. So which it did. And I got up to about 85% virtual business, like in the early teen years. So way before COVID ever happened, I was delivering in this very unique style, and I got known for it. And that really helped me get more big corporate gigs, because they would have on one team, they would have people living in 20 countries, and they didn't have the budget to fly people to be together all the time. So it worked out really great. And did that mean I lost my in-person business? No. Not at all. They would say, do you also do in-person? Do you have other teammates or team members who will do in-person? And that's exactly what it allowed me to build the business, where I delivered all the virtual. And then I built a team of trainers who would go deliver the in-person. So how incredible. It actually helped me grow my business, but the fear was keeping me from putting that out there, because it seemed like it would narrow down and keep people from talking to me. But it was the exact opposite. They would say, oh, yay, cool. And we loved you. Do you also do this? Do you also do this? Do you also do that?
Yeah, and you make a great point that if you specialize in something, yes, there are people that won't call you because that's not what they want. But the people who want that will find you, and not many people specialize. And so if you're specializing in this and that's what they want, then you become a kind of a prime candidate.
Right. I mean, imagine how the messaging works. Like if you think about someone saying, I train people on people skills. Okay, well, we got a little narrower. It's not just I'm a trainer, but I train people on people skills. But then imagine the person who says, I help companies during performance review season so that managers can deliver feedback effectively and write effective performance reviews. Now, when you say something that specific, they know exactly whether you can help them. They know who to say, oh my gosh, my friend needs that right now. I just had a friend complaining about this. Let me send you to Joe. So that is what it allows. When you're specific, it allows people to find you. And it's so weird in our brains. We make it so scary, but actually the opposite. It brings so many more people to us because they know when we're a match for them.
The other thing is that, the example you just gave is I help managers with performance evaluation. People can connect the dots and say, well, if you can do that, you probably can also help with difficult conversations. You can also help with, how I lead a team. And, they can draw from that. But it
Yeah.
is a much more powerful, here's what I do. I'm really an expert in this area. But that expertise requires a lot of other skills, and people can make that connection as well. So
Yeah.
it's not nearly as limiting as it sounds.
That is so true, Alan, because they do that. I mean, even when you're in a prospecting call, the very first call, first time they've ever met you, they'll be saying exactly what you did. Oh, well, could you also help us with some team conflict? Oh, could you also help us with this communication thing we have going on? They make these connections and start asking if you do that. So, yeah, absolutely. It really feels like constraint, but it is the opposite in most cases. And then your messaging is clear. Everything about it is better when you get specific. And I'm not dissing the idea of multi-passionate people, because a lot of us have a lot of things going on, right? We might have multiple businesses. We might have an employee role as a coach, but then we go off and launch a speaking career. We have all kinds of things going on. If you're specific in each one, in my opinion, you're golden. You can have multiple passions, but just make it clear. And when you're talking to someone, I don't have to go up and when they say, what do you do? I could say, oh, I have this training business called Lead Through Strengths where I help people find their strengths. Oh, I also help coaches, trainers, and speakers build their business acumen and marketing skills. Oh, I also am in a band. I'm a drummer singer. I don't just pick one. You just have to pick one of the things that you think will resonate with the person you're in front of.
Right. Yeah. Too much information is too much information.
Right.
So,
right.
all right. So something else we were talking about is that, there are a lot of people who are internal in an organization, trainers, HR, maybe even mentoring and coaching, or leaders who are getting ready to make the leap for any number of reasons. And assuming that they're not retiring, they need to keep making money. So what are some of the strategies people can use to begin to think about that transition to becoming independent? What are some of the keys? So when they land, they land on their feet, not on their butt, and can start walking.
Always good to land on the feet. One thing that I think is really important is doing the math of your business model. And that is just literally, you could have a low ticket digital business where you're offering workbooks for sale and you sell $10 at a time. And you just do the math. How many $10 products do I have to sell to hit the income that I want? You might have a small group training or coaching program where you charge $1,000 a person and you run an event over the course of several months. You might do individual events. You might do culture work. But you might have a price tag. Like my price tag has literally varied in my business from $10 offers to a $297,000 package. I had this huge range. But when you're starting off, you really need to know what is the math of my business to hit the revenue number that I need to hit. And let's say when you start off, assuming you're solo and you're doing a lot of things on your own when you start, you can probably hit an 80% margin in your business. So think about that as your profit. And then working from profit as kind of your paycheck or what you might be able to take as a paycheck, then what is it going to take to accomplish that? So I think that math of the business thing, it is just a step that people miss. And then they get in and they're like, oh, wow, I'm not making any money in this. I'm not making the money I thought, or I didn't realize how many clients I would have to get. And it's a simple exercise you could do up front. So that's number one.
Okay, Lisa. So yeah, doing the math, figuring out how much you need to earn, how much you're going to charge. Does that mean you have to do 455 trainings in a year? It's not going to work, so you got to work out the math and figure out and be realistic. You're not going to be working every day. There's administrative work to do. There's marketing, so how many days a year can you actually work, and then do all that math. So that's the first step. If you're going to make a leap, can you afford to make that leap? What's one more thing that maybe people should really think about when they're trying to prepare for that launch?
If I were internal if I were employed and I were trying to build some things in the background while I still have a job, I would get everything built. I would pick my name. I would get my domain name. I would have the branding all down. So having your color palette and your fonts, build your website, start talking about the stuff if you can, and it's not a conflict. Sometimes it's too awkward to be posting about things about your business while you're working, but all the things you'll have to decide about, deciding your signature offer, building those marketing assets, start building some of those nurture sequences and follow-ups, building some of your materials like the core PowerPoint, anything you can build that you would later need to do that would feel like admin work. I see people really panic. So they leave the job and then they come out and they're like, oh no, I don't have any of this stuff. And this feels really hard. I don't know how to build a website. I don't know what to do now. And then it gets really scary because you start realizing, what if this takes me 6 months and I don't have any revenue? I can't sell until I have a place to send people. And then where am I going to send people? So for example, if you wanted to do a podcast or you wanted to start a YouTube channel, have your backdrop created, have your channel, figure out where you're going to host it and get your microphones and do all those kinds of things that you can think of in advance, because it's really scary if you don't have any business and you think you have 6-9 months ahead of you of building things before you're actually ready to tell people, ta-da, here I am. So I think that is great. It's a luxury of time that you can have. Build it, go through all those decisions you have to go through, because there are way more decisions than you think you have to make. And they often feel really scary and we make them a big deal. But if you're able to do it while you have the other job, it's fine. You can just keep plugging through until you have the basic stuff built out and you're ready to come out feeling strong. Then you can spend a decent amount of your time marketing, prospecting, having needs assessment calls and discovery calls with people, because I think people get really surprised at how much time they're spending on the marketing and selling end versus the delivery. Because we kind of imagine ourselves like, oh, I'm out and now I just deliver full time. But actually, you're probably spending as much time selling and marketing. So then if you hadn't done that brand building and all of those decisions leading up, it feels like you have 3 jobs.
Yep. Oh, that's a great point. And yeah, marketing, it takes time. You don't just walk out and say, here's what I do, and okay, we'll sign you. It's a matter of prospecting, developing relationship, cultivating, talking, being at the right place at the right time, which may not be today. It may be 2 months from now. And yeah, so that's a great suggestion, that while you're working, you can envision your business, you can design it, you can build a lot of the materials, you can have all your kits ready to go, whatever it is you're doing. And then when you hit the ground, all you have to do is market. And that's a great strategy. And the other thing is, I was thinking as you were talking, I'm working full time and I'm doing all this development. Well, yeah, welcome to the world of entrepreneur. It's more than a 40-hour week to get started. And so that'll kind of get you used to the fact that, yeah, you've got to be doing your day job and then doing all this other stuff on the side. So.
Yeah. And that actually circles back to that math part. There's a math of the revenue, but there's also a math of your time. Like early in my business, I did exactly what you just said, Alan. I worked so many hours. I burnt my body out so hard. And if I'm working for those big clients, of course, they're going to have the Americas, Europe, the whole thing is going to be early in the morning. Then I'm going to do Asia Pacific, India at night, and I'm going to be working 16-hour days, not thinking about how that's going to happen. And then in the middle of the day, in between those sessions, I'm building all the stuff that we were just talking about. And lack of sleep and those kind of things catch up. They definitely caught up to me and created some health issues. So later, now I'm at a 3-day work week. It's incredible.
Yep.
And it takes a lot more of those math exercises to say, if I'm going to build this lifestyle out, how am I going to spend the hours that I have left? Because there aren't that many hours left if you're working Tuesday through Thursday. And then does that mean my revenue needs to be higher during those times, or am I willing to make less? But just really just looking at an ideal state. What lifestyle do I want to live? What hours or days do I want to work? And then can I map something that makes sense on all the fronts without wearing your body out? Because you can do it for a little while, but eventually it tells you,
it's not a long-term
no, buddy,
strategy.
You're done. Right. Mine said, we're shutting it down. And it shut me down for a couple of years because I wouldn't listen to the signs.
Yep. Good point. Well, thanks, Lisa. That's about all the time we have. So that's it for today's episode of Lead, Learn, and Connect. A huge thank you to Lisa Cummings for sharing some great insights and her expertise in the training and coaching world. If you found this helpful, be sure to subscribe, share it with a colleague, and leave a review. You can find out more about Lisa's work, her podcast, her tools, and all the other things she does in the show notes. We've got some links for you to follow her. And if you're ready to strengthen how you teach or coach communication, click the link to our website to learn more about the T.E.A.M model of communication and follow us on LinkedIn. Until next time, keep leading with intention, keep learning, and keep connecting. Thanks for listening.